Here we go. What's up? Welcome along to today's video podcast, whatever you want to call it. Today we've got Joel Staveley on the couch. And Joel, you and I, we've known each other for a while now, right? How did we meet in the cafe about...
We did. You sent me a message on Instagram.
Yep.
Just over, 2 years ago?
Yep. Maybe
2020,
three.
I think. Yeah, COVID year.
That's right. It's been a little while.
Just before the lockdown, I reckon.
So we met about roughly 3 years ago now, and it's gone really quick. We've had COVID in between. But Joel is an incredible videographer and photographer. You might have seen his work out there on social media, maybe. You do a lot of work with dancers at the moment. That's right, eh?
I do, yeah.
That's really, really cool. And so, Joel, I thought it'd be really cool if we just start off a little bit about your journey, because you didn't start off as a photographer, videographer. Tell us where you what happened after high school, etc.
Yeah, so I'm skipping a few things, but I got into engineering.
Yes.
So I spent 5 years at university studying robotics engineering. And then I worked as a forensic engineer for about 4 years.
A forensic engineer, the first thing you think about is crimes and things.
In that sense, in the industrial world, it's you're working at minute scale, solving complex problems. And sometimes there are firearms and guns involved in engineering. You wouldn't believe it, but there was a forensic job I had to do. Actually, we had to calculate the bullet trajectory of some ricochets that were firing an 8-gauge shotgun inside at New Zealand Steel. They break away some of the accretion rings inside the kilns. And we had to trace the bullet trajectory because there was five of these slugs went through the door at the other end of the kiln.
Wow.
And anyway, it was hush-hush at the time because it was such a serious...
Wait, sorry, I might have missed something here, but did someone go in and start blasting a gun around like a crazy person?
It's just a normal maintenance task, yeah.
What, testing if the place was bulletproof?
No, they shoot out these gigantic carbon accretion rings that build up inside the kilns, which are 70 meters long. And the only way to do it, they found, is to fire 2,000 slugs at it. And then they send a digger in to dig it out. Yeah. They have to break it because these things are so big and heavy. The amount of energy you need to break through it destroys all their other equipment. So slugs are actually the cheapest way to do it.
Wow. Okay, that's amazing. So you had to do some calculations around that.
I did 3D modeled the trajectory of the bullets and figured out the incident angles and ricochets and things, how they could have left the door and gone through the other side of the building. This is a serious incident, Anyway, it was very hush-hush, health and safety at the time, so it covered a lot of bases. Obviously there was the design and engineering work and problem solving, but also health and safety issues, a lot of 3D work. It was almost all 3D. Scanning, laser scanning, metrology.
So you know a lot about those kinds of things, and you've got a mind that just holds information. I reckon you've got a really good engineer's mind. So that's something that you're really, really good at. So why did you what happened? How did you leave that? Because that's quite a good industry to be in. You know,
it was pretty intense, but I think at that time, in my early days of engineering, I was 23 when I bought my first camera. And it was a hobby at the time. I sucked at it. It really sucked.
I don't believe it.
For 3 years, I have all those photos, and I think it frustrated me so much that I was like, look, I want to be good at this. I don't know how, because I thought you could just buy a pro camera and be good at photography. It turns out you can't. So it kind of made me want to actually pursue that, and I found it so much more challenging than engineering. Believe it or not, the engineering became easier.
Really?
Yeah, no.
What on earth?
The bigger the jobs, and suddenly you're dealing with a 700-hour 3D animation job, and you've just saved $140 million for a company in Australia. You don't really get the recognition for it, but you're such a key part of that process. You're the guy that is dealing with all the senior managers and maintenance teams, and you develop the entire 3D model to remove it and overhaul a turbine, for example, with 2,000 workers. But no one knows who you are. No one cares.
But you just saved the company
you just saved,
over $100 million.
We set a world record for the fastest turnaround of an LNG compressor in the world. 13 days off their record. So
wow.
2 weeks with 2,000 workers.
Sounds like you did an amazing thing, but you felt like you weren't getting much recognition there.
I don't really care about the recognition, but it wasn't such a challenge anymore. You want to do jobs that are interesting. You're not passionate about it.
Honestly, that just sounds like the biggest challenge ever to me. I'm like, and then you're like, oh no, what's more challenging is taking a photo of someone.
It actually
is. What on earth?
Believe it or not, because There's so many constraints. You're always limited by times and budgets, and like you've got to
Just like
deadline.
engineering, though, right? What's that thing? So it's like you can either have a job fast,
Yep.
you can have a job
Cheap.
expensive. Or
Yeah.
what's the thing?
It's either fast, cheap, or good.
Yeah,
Right? You only pick two.
yeah.
And that's it. Like that's kind of where that scene comes from, and it's true all day long.
Wow.
And we made compromises on everything, and like the number of dumb projects you would do. Like you won't hear about this, but we would create. We had to build like enormous structures for like air scrubbing, for example. That didn't work, but because we needed council compliance, we would build this anyway.
I have no idea what an air scrubber is.
Like we would have really dirty off gas from like a melter or something, for example. And
Is a melter a big thing that melts like sand or metal or something? Or?
it's hot.
Okay.
It burns stuff. And anyway, the gases it releases are so toxic you're not allowed to release into the atmosphere. So you put them through a scrubber, which essentially is like a water spraying unit. You atomize the air, and it pulls out the heavy particles.
So it cleans the air,
Cleans
so
the
that when
air.
it goes out, we don't breathe in bad stuff.
You're not getting particles.
Okay.
And then there's another part of it, like catalytic converters that remove the bad gases like carbon monoxide and things, or you burn them again, the cogen unit. So we might reburn those, but the heavy particles you want to remove from the air, so we don't release that into the atmosphere.
Wow.
And anyway, we would be building some of these things that actually just didn't really work. They didn't care that it didn't work. It was just the fact that they needed to tick a box for compliance.
So
you know.
compliance be like, yes, we attempt to
Just-
clean the air.
Yeah. So there was a bit of that as well, like some things that ethically you
Just get the job done. Doesn't matter if it works
Exactly.
or not.
And they just like, we only have a $25,000 budget, for example. We're going to make it a mild steel. We know it's not going to last. They could have shown stainless at 3 times the cost, but they don't care. So
They went for
These
the
things-
cheap option.
exactly, and they just rust out, and then they have to rebuild it again in the future. So
Okay, well, we get the picture. You know your engineering, and you're really, really good at it. And then you found a passion and a love for, was it video or photography first? Like, what was it?
yeah, definitely video, I think. So
Okay.
I was probably about 12. I remember about 9 when I started making videos as a kid. But we
Okay.
made home videos. We made like cop spoofs and
Oh, yeah.
fake Lord of the Rings things. And to be honest, I didn't really film so much back then. We had like VHS cameras and some DVC cameras, but then after that, like I kind of just gave up as a teenager. I was more interested in gaming and technology and other things. I did a lot more 3D at the time. I started that around the same time.
It's 3D making animations on a
Yeah,
computer.
3D modeling, animation, like 3D Studio Max and software like that.
Yeah.
So I was doing that, before I was a teenager, and but I was really interested in like visual effects and stuff. So getting into After Effects and even
Making things
3D.
explosions.
Exactly. Like, I did a lot of stuff in like 3ds Max, like simulating explosions
Yeah.
and you're fracturing things and splintering and all that kind of stuff. And I made a few like mini, like 5 or 10 second long VFX demos things. So I
You
was
still
really,
have them?
I do, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to see those.
And at the time, like I was super keen on watching on YouTube things like 3DW and some of those awesome channels. I'm like, man, that would be so cool to do. And at the time, those guys were.
Who's Freddie W? Does he do animations or something?
They used to do like shorts, sketches on YouTube, and they were really popular at the time. This is before the days influencers didn't exist. They weren't really any big channels, but they were really popular. And they just did, like, they would take kind of pop culture things, and whether it's a Mario related thing, gaming, quite often Battlefield, and they would take a sketch out of that and do something funny with it, or do some cool VFX, explosions and guns and stuff like that.
Wow.
Okay. And as a kid, like we're all kind of into that. We wanted, who doesn't want to have a muzzle flash at the end of a gun? Right?
Yeah, that's cool.
and we've all been through that.
Yeah. Well, I haven't, but I understand. That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, as a teenager, you were like getting into the videos then, and then you got your camera while you were
Well,
engineering.
So basically, it was like a 10-year gap where I did nothing, and I didn't really film
Oh, so you
anything.
bought the camera at 23, what?
Exactly. I bought the camera at 23. I'd never taken a photo before. I had no interest in taking photos. It never really occurred to me. My parents had bought like a cheap DSLR a few years earlier, and I'd taken some photos for like my uni projects and stuff, but I had no interest in, I like the technical side of understanding
It's so-
mental exposure and things, and that was the first time I actually experimented with that.
Yeah.
But mostly for video. Like I made some random videos with crossbows and stuff like that, but nothing. I wasn't really committed to it. Wasn't interested in it. I didn't want to be a VFX artist.
Yeah.
Get into that industry.
Wow.
But 23 is when I bought my camera, and I think that was mostly spurred by the fact I was working at a company called Lansing Tech at the time. It was a technology startup, and there was 2 photographers there I met, and and they were quite passionate, interested about it. You know, they had a lot of gear. Of course, you get a bit of gear envy when you're that young getting into it. And yeah, so I bought my first camera, and I don't know if it was to impress them or anything. It was a 5D Mark II with a 24 to 105 4L.
It's a pretty good camera, isn't it?
At the time, yeah, it was good. Yeah. I brought it home and showed my mum, and she questioned why did I buy the camera? Like, I don't take any photos.
Oh.
And so part of me was like, okay, well, let me prove it.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, so you started using it.
Exactly.
When did you start taking photos of? Because you are known for taking really good portraits of people.
Yeah.
You know, photos of people you're really passionate about, getting skin tones right and all of that. And you know, that's what I think most people know you for. But you also do some really amazing landscape stuff as well. I think.
Landscapes where I started. So I spent
Okay.
about 4 years doing solid landscape photography.
And that's just a passion, right? Like, I don't know if there's any money in landscape.
There's not
Like,
really.
who needs a landscape photographer?
Yeah. Like in New Zealand, like I've got friends who, like they come to New Zealand and they thought they could sell prints, for example, and no one buys prints in New Zealand. No one prints anything, and no one buys them.
Yeah.
Which is kind of sad. Like, we've got a lot of great landscapes. It's a great country to do landscape photography in, but there's just not really an interest. We don't have that culture.
Okay.
You know,
So we see it as a good investment to go
Yeah.
pay hundreds of dollars for a picture of a mountain or whatever.
Yeah, so I think for me, like it was just about going on social media, and social media played a huge part in everything for me, really, because as a photographer, we don't really like to share our work, especially as an amateur. And
Why? Because you get embarrassed or critiqued?
You know,
by
wants to be
others?
critiqued, and it's for sure, like you walk up, you know, especially when you're new, like you know it's not great, but you also don't want people to critique it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's many people think you're really good at the start as well. So you as you start off, you feel like you're learning so much, and wow, I'm so good now. And it doesn't take long in those first like 6 months that happens, and very quickly, you know, what you feel like you actually know like drops from the floor.
Really?
You realize
People could just like
you really
nitpick
know
it.
nothing.
Yeah.
But anyway, like the point of that was that, you know, by just simply posting stuff, by pressing that post button, even having like 20
So you
followers,
overcame that kind of anxiety of people judging you somehow. So you're like, all right, I'm just going to put stuff out
I
there.
wouldn't say really felt it, but it was more of a way of me saying, look, I need to say this photo is done. I need to commit to finishing my work, because I'd never finished anything at that point. A photo edit, for example, you might spend a lot of time tweaking it, but until you hit the post or publish button somewhere, like, that photo is not done. And it's really hard to get over that hurdle, because as an artist, you always feel like it's never ready. You know, you can always do better, and you could look back and go back a few years and get the same photo and make it that much better now.
Right.
And that's it. Like, it's really hard to accept and say, look, I need to just say that's done and move on.
Yeah, it's better to have a job done than a job that's amazing but not complete.
Exactly.
Like,
And
finish the project.
That's it. And the saying, like, done is better than perfect.
Yeah, there you
It's
go.
really important. You know,
Yeah.
I think it's something a lesson that you take away from it, because at the end of the day, like, what's the point in doing work if you're not going to, if there's no point you say it's actually done?
Yeah.
Because for eternity you'll be editing something, and especially in videos, like, I find it really challenging. You know, especially when you're making a lot, like, you have to really be hard on yourself and say, look, I know I can make this better, but can I justify another 2 days on this? So, you know, it's just really difficult to weigh up what's it worth. You know, should you do that? Is it worth it?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it's the same thing for everything. Like, if you're building a house, if you're cleaning your house, like, how detailed do you want to go here? You know, just like get it done to a high standard, get it onto the next thing. That's awesome. Okay, so you actually started posting things on social media. Was it photos or videos you were posting?
Just photos.
Oh, it was photos. Cool. Photos of landscapes. Was it?
Only landscapes
Okay, cool.
for a couple of years.
Yeah, and now would you say most of your like photography business is in like portraits, right? Shooting people. Is that right?
It's more commercial.
Oh, it's more commercial.
Commercial
So products.
in terms of business, businesses, products, as well as people.
So tell us, like, what is commercial? Like, what is commercial photography? Is it like a photo of someone sitting at a desk?
It could be.
Like,
Like,
what is
generally, it's associated with commerce, right? Of course, so you're trying to sell stuff. At the end of the day,
Product services.
you're making pretty photos to sell things,
Yeah.
generally. And that might be food, for example,
Okay.
products, you know, experiences,
Mhm.
services,
Mhm.
and all things. It encompasses such a huge area
Right.
of things, you know. So there's also kind of a commercial content thing as
Yeah.
well. Like, it kind of broadly is within the area.
Yeah.
Commercial imagery, commercial photos, content, and portraits.
Nice. So a whole mix of all of that. Okay. So what's interesting though, so you started off as an engineer, and then you got this camera, and your mum was like, "Oh, that was a lot of money to spend. You're barely using it." So you're like, "All right, then I'm going to start using this camera." You started working. I'm hoping you're getting this right, and you started using it and getting better at your skills and posting some stuff out. So you were probably making all right money as an engineer.
Yeah, it's very good.
Very good money as an
More
engineer.
than my dad. After
Six figures.
Close enough.
Close
At the
enough.
time.
Yeah. For that age, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, being 21 and making that money.
Yeah, close to six figures. Okay. Then you obviously started to, like, how did you go about getting clients for photography then? Like, how did that start turning into a business? 'Cause I think that's what a lot of people probably want to know is, like, how do you make money doing this thing? Because you obviously fell in love with it, right? The videos and photos. You're so passionate about it. I mean, you decked out the studio just for the shoot. Yeah, you got all the gear. You've invested, like, tens, maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars into this now. So, how did you go about actually making an income out of it,
Well, there's
were you like me? Were you cold calling and door knocking, or like, what were you doing?
Part of that story is kind of missing because after the engineering, I travelled through. I went to 30. I think first trip was like 18 countries or something. I went overseas for 3 months. I came back to New Zealand and I'm like, what do I do now? I quit my job.
So you quit your job and just went on an OE?
I did, yeah. Okay. And I had my camera at the time. I bought it. I upgraded to another one at the time after working in engineering for a few years. Well, probably about 3 more cameras at that point. Anyway, I went overseas with a nice camera, and I came back and I was taking a few travel photos and things. Nothing too special, to be honest. I still got them, but I don't feel much for them. It's kind of like a way of storing memories in a way, just archiving them. But I was living with a tour guiding company at the time, right? So, and I'd done a few tours with them, but at the time I was like, okay, now I'm going to, come the next year, I was like, I'm going to start a new business. I want to get into try and do this full time, do video and photos.
So you're like, I'm not going back to engineering.
Yeah.
And why weren't you going back to engineering? Like, what was it? We just, excuse the flies.
I wanted a change, I think.
Okay.
I think change was a big thing, as well as a new challenge.
Yeah. Did you have a good buffer saved up there?
Yes. Yeah.
Nice. What, like 100 Gs?
Close to that, yeah.
Okay, nice.
So I had no issue with and I had cheap rent, and I was living in a place that eventually was actually I had free rent for about 2 or 3 years, just because I said to the guys I was living with, like, look, I want to go all in. I want to be a tour guide as well and get my driving license. And
that was here in New Zealand, yeah.
In New Zealand, yeah. So while I was living in South Auckland, and so I went all in that while I knew it was going to take years to build out my business anyway. And it was primarily a video focus. Like it's too hard to sell both at the same time, and video is seen as a high value product. So, but I would still continue photography at the same time in parallel.
Yeah.
And so I did a lot of tour guiding. Traveled around all over New Zealand, took a lot of landscape photos through that as well because, I had the opportunity to.
Yeah, you're touring people around.
2 weeks on the road.
What are some of your favourite places to go to take photos, just for people listening?
I love the Mount Cook region for sure. Like that was the first time I went there. It was such an experience. But anywhere down Milford Sound and also the Sounds in Te Anau Way. And unfortunately on tours, you're quite limited to where you can go. So we had a lot of fixed stops, and we would drive top to bottom in New Zealand. And you'd go through Fox Glacier and Lake Matheson and some cool spots along the way, down to Catlins. You've seen Iron Falls and Hurrikanui Falls and things like that. So I got some cool photos out of that, and it was good to have a little bit of content. But I had to be careful because I couldn't be seen to be taking many photos. My primary attention was on the students I was with. You couldn't be seen because what? Like your boss might be like, "Hey, why are you?" No, I was. I had me and my assistant on most of these tours, but it was the students. They were all between 14 and 18 years old. Oh yeah. All international students in New Zealand, and I'm there to obviously look after them. And so photography was always a back seat in that sense, and it's no different now on the photography tours I do. It's the same thing. I barely take any photos myself. So you do photography tours? I do. I've transitioned now. After I left tour guiding just before COVID, which absolutely destroyed the industry, of course. So I was kind of lucky a few months. About 6 months before our first lockdown, that I'd gone on another overseas trip, was away for another 3 months, and again lost basically all the work for the rest of the year when I came back, only to find out in the new year we had a lockdown and COVID, and I think it's when we met. That is when we met. That's true. Yeah. So it's been a very quite an up and down journey since then. And so prior to us meeting, had you mainly done photo and video for the tour guide sort of stuff, right? Because you'd done a few other videos, real estate. You'd sent me a link, and I was like, "That's quite cool." I started probably in the school videos actually was.
That's
the first
right.
big one.
Yes.
So school, like we were marketing schools internationally, and that tied in with the tour boating because we took international students and we had good relationships with a lot of schools in New Zealand. So one of the guys I was living with, he was a great sales guy, and he was pitching to all the schools that we could do this, and we travelled around New Zealand filming for schools as well in the off season. So in between our big tours, we would spend the weekdays doing that.
Nice.
And so that was good. It started it with a $150 drone video. This is at the time we did like DJI Phantom 2 with a GoPro on it.
Yeah.
Before like modern drones, and we started pitching this to schools, and we did a few videos, and they really liked it because no one had ever seen it before. And so we did a bunch of that. And we started making packages and doing in-school videos with ground footage and aerial footage, and we did this before Phantom 3 came out. Really integrated systems were available.
Wow.
So very early days. And we were actually flying drones in engineering as well, back as far as 2014, 2013. Very early days doing like aerial photogrammetry with GoPros, and we had special calibration profiles. And this is well before any of this is popularized.
Dude, what?
It's
take photos of like roads or something? Or?
Yeah, like we used to 3D laser scan stuff, but instead, sometimes it was more practical just to do aerial survey. And we'd fly around, take thousands of photos, stitch them all together and create a 3D model using photos, using a technique called photogrammetry.
Yeah.
So, and we could combine that with the laser scan data, which is much more accurate. But it was really good for like doing big site surveys. Doing 5 or 10 square kilometers was easy. You can do that in a couple of hours.
Wow.
You couldn't do that with laser scan.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, cool. So you'd been making videos for schools and, doing a couple of video jobs and things like that. And then that's when we met up because I was looking to start a business in production.
Yeah.
And then, you got to because I was just typing into my Instagram. I was like, right, I need to find videographers, photographers. I'm starting this, production company, content creation agency. So I just typed into my Instagram. I think I just typed in hashtag Auckland videographer or hashtag Auckland photographer or something, and a few people came up, and you were one of them.
Yeah.
So I must have just sent you a DM saying something like, "Hey, I'm either I run a production company, or I'm starting one, or whatever I said." But you agreed to meet up for coffee, so that was cool.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, and actually, after that, I think before that, I was doing some reasonably big commercial works as well. I started working with Panasonic.
Oh wow!
And we worked with their GM and marketing team from Japan, and we had some big jobs before all that happened too.
Yeah.
So transitioning from, I always wanted to leave the school video side of things, and we did dozens of videos all over New Zealand, and then transitioned to the bigger projects, and then everything just constantly kept changing. But
that's cool, man. And you were saying, we were chatting the other day, that you actually find social media really helpful for you. You've been out for a lot of coffees with people that just DM you, are they clients or other budding photographers, or people reach out to you to catch up, it's pretty powerful.
By and large, at the time, there were all other photographers, or just people interested in travel photos and stuff. People who could connect with New Zealand and people in Switzerland and Norway and all over the world. They love seeing New Zealand. They're like, oh, wow, I've been here before, and for them it was reliving those memories. But there was also there were a lot of budding photographers at the time. I was back in the days we had a couple hundred followers, or pre-1000s. There was people who you just want to meet up and go shoot with other people, because most of us are introverts as photographers, and we don't meet other people. We don't meet them through work, and it's really hard to find people who are interested in that. So Instagram in particular is a great way just to find other people who kind of shared your interests and passions, and you just meet up and kind of see what happens. So most of it was, more so friends, I call them now, but occasionally clients as well. I get Kathmandu message me, and we
that's
do some
nice
stuff for them. So it's a great way to connect with brands if you're consistent with producing content. And it was a bit easy at that time, but it's just constantly evolving. The algorithm just kind of destroys your reach every year.
Destroys your reach every year.
Yeah, but at the time,
what do you mean? So the algorithm destroys your reach?
Yeah, they kind of just change the algorithm a bit, and suddenly everyone you reach half the people you used to. You go from 1,500 likes a photo down to 100, overnight.
How do you think this algorithm works? Excuse the flies, by the way. It's summer. How does this work? What is it? Do they change the rules at YouTube or Instagram or whatever to say, hey, people need to now post 15-second videos, so we're going to show more of those, or how do you think that works?
They definitely prioritize certain content. They're constantly trying to find what people like the most and push that.
Okay.
in that sense, it's a bit of a pyramid. You know, like
Yeah.
if I'm looking for that viral content, this is like days where virality was still fairly new. Like you know, when you see posts that suddenly get millions of likes, it's still a fairly recent concept. You know, even 5 years ago. But
True.
you know, I think that was part of it, and they introduced new features like the explore page, and suddenly they bury like the recent posts. For Instagram used to be a chronological feed. They switched it to a feed based on what they think you like, and that was one of the major changes that came that made a lot of people really unhappy, because now you're only seeing photos of people who are already fairly well known and successful, and a lot of people like their photos, so more people are going to see it. And it just amplifies it more. But if you're someone who, you know, so it really wasn't an even playing field in that sense, especially with hashtags and how buried the recent posts became. Because that used to be, I think if you click on a hashtag, the first thing you would see is recent posts. And that changed to now top posts, which became like a type of an explore page. And so that was one of the major changes that kind of ruined it for everyone, to be honest. And unless you're already at a point where you've got 10, 20, 50, 100,000 followers and getting a lot of likes and interested in your photos, you just wouldn't get it otherwise.
Wow.
And that's not to say, you know, it wasn't possible, but it was so unlikely that you were going to be seen, especially by businesses and clients, which you were obviously trying to kind of find at the time.
Yeah. Yeah. Has it improved, do you think?
No,
No.
it's got a lot worse.
Oh, okay.
They've made change. They've gone back and forth, but I think you'll see a problem of the population dying off. People are so much less interested in looking at your images and content through social media. A lot of like dormant profiles and things.
Oh, okay.
For example. So yeah, but at the same time, like, you know, you feel like, I remember when I started, I felt like it was a missed opportunity. I'm like, man, I'm like 5 years late to the party. Why am I doing it now?
Yeah.
But you know, in time, you start to just accept, like, you know, things change, and you know that everything's always changing. You know, you've got a new market, and new people are coming on board, new people are finding things, and so, you know, even though you missed that opportunity a few years ago, but like there's always new opportunities being presented.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's what you start to learn the hard way. But once you do, like, you start to be okay with the way it works. You're like, I don't care. Those numbers never meant anything. I didn't care about likes at any point. For me, I was just doing what I liked and meeting people.
Nice. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Well, it brought us together anyway, social media, which is awesome. Now we've done like heaps of shoots together, which is so cool, and your work's absolutely beautiful. So tell us a little bit about, like, so all right, so you got started, so you got the passion for it, you started doing the schools, you started putting some stuff out on social media that started attracting opportunities to you. Now things have changed a bit. Like, now look, is that what the hat's for? MX. So now you've found yourself a really cool niche in the dance industry. So tell us about that.
Yeah, I guess it all started, like, dealing with those lockdowns in the last few years caused so much damage to business, and they did for everyone. Let's be honest. Like, it slowed everything down. You lost so much momentum. You know, every year something seems to be happening that just kills it.
Yeah.
Which is a real shame. And you know, so we started, like, at first it was kind of just a little personal project. It was at the time when I was doing a lot of portrait photography, and I was like, okay, well,
when you say it was a little project, do you mean portrait photography with dancers? Is that what happened?
Not necessarily.
No? Okay.
Like, I was kind of working with lots of people, you know, people in fitness, bodybuilders, personal trainers, and just models, and all sorts of things, right?
Yeah.
So, and most of these people are just ordinary people who kind of want to try a photo shoot and do a bit of modeling. But you know, I think there's a time where I'd worked with like one dancer. It was never something I was like actively pursuing, but you know, I think there's always a curiosity you have as a visual artist. Like, well, you know they can make great images, and
they can do cool stuff with their body.
They can. Yeah, they can. And so that would have been late 2018, I think, the first time I ever worked with one.
Yeah.
But I never actively pursued that. It was just a portrait session at the time. But the next year, in 2019, is when I went on a cruise ship. And so I was on a cruise ship for 20 days on this trip, and you get pretty bored on a cruise ship.
Really?
And every night they have entertainment, right? So they had a dance group. I think it was the Zero Human Project or something at the time. I can't remember exactly. It was 8 of them in this group. And I'd never seen anything like this before. So I went along with my family and saw it, and I wasn't that interested in going to see it, but it turns out it was so cool I went back and saw it the next night.
Wow, really? So you were like not interested in dancing, and then you're like all of a sudden
I think
a fan.
the experience of it, like, it was amazing.
Just
and
a
part
great
of, like,
show.
there's a lot of technical elements to it as well.
Like the lighting.
projection, and like, just, it was awesome.
What was it, contemporary? What was the style?
Everything. Like they were clearly all trained in ballet, lyrical, contemporary styles, and a bit of hip hop as well, some jazz and some salsa, and
That's awesome.
everything. And so
Did you want to dance? Did you like?
No, I was like, I want to capture this.
You want to capture it?
That was what my first thought was. Not like I can't. You know, I know how much training it takes to do this. It's been so much of my life now. I'm training in videos and photos. Like it's a hard skill to learn. But,
you mean dancing's a hard skill?
Well, like I was saying, but for me, like photography and everything I've learned,
yeah,
it's difficult. I know how much time it takes, and like, you know, I feel more attracted to doing photography and video than I do dancing.
Oh yeah.
But clearly, it was something I was like, oh, this is really cool. So during that trip, I was going up through Northern Europe all the way up. I finished in Norway, but I actually messaged a couple of dancers on that trip. I met up with a soloist from
that you'd seen on the stage, or just
no, just on Instagram.
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
so I knew how to connect with people on Instagram. So so I did. I messaged a few of them, and I met up with this girl Lucia in Germany, in Hamburg.
Okay.
And she was at the Hamburg Opera at the time. Is now in Paris Opera, in France. And we did a photo shoot. And I was like, oh, this is awesome.
What did you do? Like in the studio, in the street?
No, we're on the street. So we're in Hamburg, and we went to, I think it was Spielstadt. It's one of the old parts of the city. And it's just like, it's amazing being in a place like that because you find so much more inspiration. You know, like it's just so different. You know, you've got graffiti everywhere. It's amazing old buildings, hundreds and hundreds of years old. Things you'd never see in a country like.
And
New
all of
Zealand.
this will contribute to the photos that you take, right? Like, it adds. One of your sayings is it adds to the production value.
Yes.
So having a great setting, you know, the lighting,
Absolutely.
everything, it adds to the production. So,
And it's something. It was so unique, you know. Like you just never find that here. So of course, like you're attracted to things that you're not around, that you can't experience in your own country or your place of residence.
Yeah.
So I did a couple of photo shoots overseas and came back.
Getting them to like jump in the air and do the splits and
Yeah,
twirls
like-
and
like
poses and
Yeah,
You
like
know?
directing dances is obviously not my forte, but you know you start to learn and directing models is no problem and camera work and things, the lighting and so on. But you know it was a whole different experience, like especially when they can take over that aspect of they know their bodies and what they can do. So it really felt like a lot more collaborative process in that sense, and like I'll take care of everything else, but like let's see what you can do.
yeah.
It was awesome.
So what would you do? Would you just like get them to do like a dance in front of a thing and then just take as many photos as you can, or would you be like, we're going to go for a split leap here, and you just try?
I didn't know any of the terminology at the time, so
Yeah.
I was kind of definitely relying on them. But we did experiment with a bit of video as well, and but yeah, like I definitely relied a lot on what they could do, and you know they were no stranger to doing that. So.
Okay. All right, that's awesome. So you started with the dancers, so I guess that's kind of where your inspirations come from like 2019, that cruise, and you, after seeing that show, you were like, oh my goodness, I think it would be cool to take photos of dancers and videos of dancers. So I remember when we first met, I saw some of your work, which was the dancing stuff, and I thought, this is incredible. I've probably seen some of the photos you're talking about. So then what did you start like outreaching to dance companies? Like, this has been pretty recent that you've been going more hard out with it, right? The last 12 months you've been going pretty hard.
I never reached out to any of them.
Oh, okay.
So it became more like collaborative shoots, and I did a few, and some of these dancers happened to be teachers or connected with studios, and people just kind of talk and find out. And so I did some kind of random creative videos and just experimented. I love experimenting. That's something I've always had a passion for. I love just trying things and failing and trying again, you know. So not everything's going to work out, but
yeah,
I think it's really important to just experiment with stuff. And I've been doing that, you know, since before I was a teenager. You know, with all the 3D and the animation, visual effects, like I have that same attitude. I carry that. I'm like, oh, you know, what happens if I had a muzzle flash at the end of a gun, or try a random explosion, or create a portal or something. You know, I think experimenting and playing is really important. So I've always felt like, you know, it's my playground. It's like a digital playground for me.
that's cool. So it's like a good investment to make. Experimenting in things is a good investment of your time, because you don't know what's going to come of it. Like, it could be like good or it could be bad. So you like that little risk of like, oh, it could turn out to be cool, and you're going to learn something from it.
Like, yeah, I think it's important. You know, if you lose the willingness or interest in playing, you know, like, because we do as kids, like that's all we did, right? But as we become adults, we become a lot more sedate, and we don't do that anymore. You know, I think we all know that. We've got other stuff and responsibilities, and things to care about. So it's hard to maintain that. And I feel like I mean, I've done a pretty good job of maintaining them now, but at the same time, I realized, like, was it worth spending 10,000 hours of my life doing 3D work? Which I had, until recently. I spent more time doing 3D than I ever had in photos and video.
Wow.
No one would even know it because I never share it.
Okay, that's cool, man. I like this niche. So, like, all right, tell us, so when you work with dancers, like, what's it like working with you? Like, do you kind of just get them to do whatever they want to do and you're just, like, there to film it? Or, like, do you sort of have suggestions for them now? Because you've done quite a bit of this now, right? So
yeah. I think, like, I love the fact that it's a collaborative process. And, like, I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert in directing dance because I'm not a choreographer. I'm a director of photography. So, my skills combined with their skills is kind of what can make magic.
Yeah.
So as much as it'd be great to learn everything, like it's a difficult task managing as much as we do on our side of the camera as well. And I think people really forget that. You're exposing and focusing and composing, and, as well as directing and moving at the same time. And so it's that much more difficult to tell someone else what to do while you're doing all that. The less you have to think about, the better.
Yeah.
So generally, like a lot of the dance shoots tend to be quite involved with a lot of people. And so I'll quite often work alongside choreographers or dancers, and sometimes they'll come up with their own choreography, or whether we're doing show reels and things. If it's a creative project, I'm happy to direct people. But when it comes to dance, like there's clearly a lot of people with a lot of talent, and I love to showcase that. I don't want this to be all about me. I'm not going to stick my name and call it that's my choreography. This is my project. Like I want to glorify other people and help them succeed.
Yeah, and so like. You come with a lot. Like you've got all the lights, you got the cameras, you can change the color of the background. Like, you can put on an amazing show. You can do like strobe effects, like all sorts of cool things, right? So there's a lot when people work with you.
There is, yeah, and that's something I'm trying to educate people on. Is I want them to understand like what the possibilities are.
Like they have access to.
There's so much we can do, but. Because New Zealand, I do feel like we're quite far behind across the board in all industries, and when it comes to content at least, we really kind of fall below the bar, and I think it's going to take a lot of time to show people, and that's part of the experimenting, right? I want to show people what's possible, especially when it comes to lighting, or transitions, and some of the creative possibilities, particularly video.
Yeah.
Like that's something people just haven't seen it. They're not aware of it. It might exist, but no one's looking for it. And that's the thing. So but the hard part is you've got to create a really good foundation, like a foundation of quality and reliability and all these other things. You've got to obviously be good at what you do and have that credibility before you can really start to push the bar.
Yeah.
And show people what else is possible. Because I'd love to get back to my roots in VFX, for example.
And bring that to dancing.
100%,
maybe you can make some cool dance movies. There's a little storyline going on, and like a dance in there, and that'd be cool, man.
Yeah, I'd love to, and that's kind of the plan. You're doing these concept videos, mini short films involving dancers, of course. They're doing what they do best. I want to showcase them, and I'd love to be able to bring the kind of commercial world into that, like connecting brands with dancers, for example. There's a lot of opportunity there because, by and large, these dance-related companies don't have a lot of creativity. Like, for example, they sell dancewear or whatever.
They have a storyline in there.
They don't understand what's possible. They haven't really thought so much about it. There's basic content, but there's so much more.
There's so much more. Like look at Paris Goebel.
Yeah.
Like everyone knows Paris is Paris. So if you don't know, she's like world famous New Zealand hip hop dancer. Does choreography like for Rihanna and probably big names like that.
Yeah.
So
New Zealand's got a lot of talent.
A lot of talent.
I learned quickly, and but you don't see it. Like many of our best dancers, you just never really get to see them. And at least on social media and things, sure, they're competitions and whatnot, and then they all move overseas. That's the other thing. Like, no one stays here. We don't have the opportunity in New Zealand.
Well, what you're filming for people probably helps them to further their career as dancers.
Absolutely.
So you can give them like a really cool looking portfolio that they can show, which they can use to attract those international opportunities, or big ones in New Zealand if they do have big opportunities, which is pretty cool.
Oh yeah. No, I think professional development's a huge aspect of it as well. Like, and obviously these kids grow up so fast. You get to see when you start working with them when they're young and they've never done video photos before. Over the years, they become so confident and so much different when they're being filmed, and
When they like see the video afterwards, they go, "Wow, this
like,
looks so good!
Yeah,
I'm amazing."
It's quite an experience for them, because
Yeah.
in past it's never really happened in New Zealand. So to be able to bring that in and make it more of a popular thing, and the benefit of being able to focus on that for me more and more is I can offer more and make it easier for them to digest and know how to work with them better as well.
Yeah. Okay, that's super cool. So if there's dancers out there, because that's who you really want to work with at the moment, like
It's one of
a big part of your market,
Sure.
right? Dancers. All right. So like, if you want to work with Joel, then basically just send you a DM, right?
pretty much.
What Instagram should they be doing it to? Because I think you got a few
I do.
Instagrams.
Can I go to the website mx.dance?
mx.dance. Okay.
And the Instagram page that is Art of MX is the website,
Yeah.
the Instagram page.
And that's for photos and videos of dance.
That's purely dance.
Wow, that's so cool, man. Well, hey, is there anything else that you want to kind of chat about today? Like, it's been really cool hearing about your journey and how you've like transitioned from engineering through to grabbing a camera, traveling overseas. It sounds like you kind of just fell in love with video and photo, and it's just evolved. And one thing's led to another. You got a camera, then you saw some dancers, and then you're like, hey, you got curious. So I'll take some videos and photos of dancers, and then that fell into a thing. And now you're getting some great clients in this, and you're taking heaps of videos and photos with local studios, and you actually have developed a real passion for it. It sounds like that same kind of passion that you got from that night on that cruise ship, where you're like, wow, this is a great show. It sounds like you've sort of still got that, and you're trying to.
It's clearly a great opportunity in a country like New Zealand. It makes great content.
Yeah.
I think
Yes, true.
as videographers, photographers, we're attracted to movement and motion, and it's in some ways it's like the pinnacle of all that. Like it's exciting. Like don't get me wrong, I like commercial stuff as well. Like at the end of the day, our job as DPs is to create beautiful things.
Yes.
We create beautiful pictures and images and that's really kind of what drives us. And, good subjects help a lot with that.
Absolutely, yeah. Dance is such an amazing visual thing. It's so cool. Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. Well, hey, I think we'll wrap things up about there, eh? But like, if you are in dance and you want to have some video or photography work, Joel is the one to go to. So definitely hit him up. mx.dance.com.
No, just mx.dance. That's the domain.
That's it.
That's it.
mx.dance.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for coming in, man.
Thanks, man.
It's been awesome hanging.
Yeah.